This
Yeah.
conference will now be recorded.
Renee, you look all refreshed from all that clean air in the Adirondack.
Adirondack, yeah, do I? I also kind of look like a mountain woman. My hair's a
Well, that's
little
a
out
good
of
thing.
control, you know.
No,
It all goes together.
all goes together.
Oh,
There
you're
you go.
beautiful anyway.
Hi, Zach.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, we almost have a full party.
All right.
Whatever. We just have to find Frank. And Zach, okay, you're there. All right, we're just waiting for Frank to come back to the screen.
Hi, Lily. We can see you now.
Yes. It took me
Excellent.
4 tries, and I might exit unexpectedly at any time, at any moment, but I'll just have to hook up with my phone. I'll do the best I can. For some reason, this cuts out with no warning. So
We kind of look like the Brady Bunch tonight here.
don't we? Come on, Frank.
I'm not singing.
It's the story of a village named Pittsford.
There you are, Frank.
Oh boy.
A little
All
humor to
right, I
start the
think it was a
meeting.
tip
All
to
right.
thirsties beforehand, wasn't it?
I'm only
I
drinking
will-
coffee. Don't worry.
I will remind
All
the board
right.
that was just recorded and will be available.
Oh, no.
You know, you could blame me for that one.
Singing is not one of my talents. I freely admit that.
We have a new village fundraiser. It's called Bob Singing.
No.
Oh my goodness, we better get that GoFundMe page going instead.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I'm gonna raise much with me singing, that's for sure.
Raise the
All
roof,
right.
Bob.
Are we ready to start? And I think Bill Smith is going to join us right here very shortly. So I'm going to make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
That's our second.
Okay. Dorothea, would you do a roll call?
I will. Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Stetzer,
That's our eye.
Mayor Corby.
Mayor Corby, aye.
Awesome. Motion passes.
Okay, conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest they would like to disclose?
I have nothing to report. Trustee Galusha.
That's
Lampier, I have nothing to report.
Stetzer has nothing to report either.
Corby has nothing to report. Lily?
I did say. I did not. I did not.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you before. Okay. Let's move to our first report from Zach, because Steve could not make tonight's meeting, so we will not have a building inspector report.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Zach.
This is mostly just stuff that I've already covered in my weekly reports. Village Grove, the curbing has been installed. We had to adjust a catch basin at the east side of the island up about 8 inches. With the frame and grade, that's going to be another 3 inches on top of that. So we had to build the road up pretty high. We had to bring in a lot of stone to do that, but I think the drainage is going to be great. It should look nice when it's done. We're going to be milling the road tomorrow morning. I'm anticipating it to take about 3 hours or so, and we're going to have the help of the town with that, hauling our out of Village Grove and bringing them to our shop. And hopefully in the next week or so, we should be back in there paving. And I got to coordinate with the town again on their availability for hauling asphalt in for us. So we're plugging away. Shouldn't be too much longer till that road is done. Scott Harder and I had met with the DOT engineers in front of St. Louis a couple weeks ago. And during our discussions, they brought up the sidewalk extension on State Street. And I guess they are going to be putting that into their plans for that part of the road. So that relieves us of having any responsibility of putting in the sidewalk there.
That's great news.
Yeah. The only thing is they're not going to be bringing it right to the village line. So we're looking at about 150 feet continuing on from where it left off. They're only going to be bringing it in about 50 feet past Durham Way, which would then return to the street and cross from there. And that's a pretty good place to have a crossing without having any interference with, either the grade of the right of way or just having a driveway. So.
So it would cross the street east of Durham Way?
Yes. So it sounds like they're going to be running about another 50 feet east of Durham Way on the south side of the road, and then connecting it to the north side. So yeah, that's good news. Showing place, we milled and patched sections of the road and some of the heaves in the canal path. We ended up putting down about 8 or 9 tons of asphalt. So we did a lot of work there, but due to pedestrian and vehicle traffic, we just couldn't move any further with it. We were just put to a halt. So we finished up what we were doing there, and we're going to try to get back there when we're done with Village Grove, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But we did go through and we put a couple inches of hot patch in front of the curb in front of the tower. So built the road up a couple inches there and then pushed it out toward the center of the road. But because that whole section of the road out in front of the tower is kind of a low flat spot, all it did was just push the water out to the middle of the road, towards the middle of the road. So when we go back in there with hot patch, we're going to bring it out a little bit further and see if we can't shed the water further down the road toward catch basin. So for now, it's still pooling, but just not right next to the curb. But we're working on it. Last week, a street light and a small London plane tree was hit by a car about 3 o'clock in the morning. This is out in front of the Little House on Monroe Ave. It destroyed the lamppost and destroyed the tree. So I'm waiting on quotes currently for the lamp to be replaced, and I'm going to talk to Tom Shannon about tree replacement. So I'll get a quote from him as soon as possible. Also, we're just waiting to hear from Monroe County Sheriff for the police report on this, so we can get the driver's insurance and bill him accordingly.
Zach, that ball is in my court. I was out of the office. Mayor Corby texted me on Thursday to let me know about it. So I contacted the sheriff's department today. So
You did.
Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
did you already do that, or?
No, in fact, I was talking to Dorothea about that and Zach this morning. So great.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I sent you an email on it, Renee, asking you if you could do that. So that's awesome. Thank you.
I just saw that in my email. So, okay, great. That's in my court. I will send it. Do you want me to copy you, Zach? I usually send it to everybody, but.
If you can.
Yeah, that's fine. Dorothea, I'll probably hand all the quotes off to Dorothea, and then she can settle it up with the insurance company, however she sees fit.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
thank you, though.
Zachary? Zach?
Yes.
This
Yes.
is Trustee Lanfear. May I ask for a clarification regarding the extension of the State Street sidewalk? Did you also mention that a bump out was proposed to the DOT at the same time, or is that a separate project?
They were still unsure about the bump outs. I did ask them if we get the approval to put the mock bump outs up there again with the cones, and the engineer said that he was going to talk to his supervisor about it and get back to us. I haven't heard anything back in the last couple of weeks since we had talked, so not sure if that's going to fly.
But Zach, you're saying they are going to put a crosswalk there. So in which
That's
case,
what it sounds like.
then we can put that, the stop for pedestrian sign out there, and that'll slow people down because it's a physical barrier, at least temporarily, until we figure out if they're going to do bump outs. Okay, awesome. I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, and they're going to have to incorporate some sort of signage down through there too. So I don't know if now would be the time to start talking to them and putting the bug in there about flashing pedestrian signs on the side of the road. Not sure.
Let me just insert something here because it's relevant. DOT contacted me last week And they've been making adjustments to the design of the pedestrian improvements that they're going to include as part of the repaving projects through the village. I asked them if they wanted to schedule a meeting. They said they weren't ready yet, but in the near future, they'll be scheduling a meeting with Renee and myself to go over these changes that they're proposing to I think it's largely refinements. So that's issue one where we could address this issue. The second issue I thought of is there's a similar condition on South Main Street to what happens at State Street. If you follow the sidewalk on the west side of the road, there's no crosswalk to return it over to the east side. And I think we should push to get a crosswalk there because it would allow for another ped sign right at the entrance to the village, which would be a speed calming factor right there where it's needed, just north of the bus stop. So it would be another opportunity for us to calm traffic on one of the arterials coming into the village.
So
And
you're
right
talking,
now, you know,
oops, sorry. Go ahead, finish.
yeah, no, go ahead, Renee. Go
You're
ahead.
talking right at the bus loop, the bus
Right
terminal.
at the village line, right,
Okay.
exactly. There should be a crosswalk there and there's not.
And I believe the town has plans to finish that sidewalk on that other side. And I think, is Sunset and South Main on their list as well, their broader list for DOT? Do you know? I don't know if
I
you've seen any preliminary plans.
haven't seen their plans. I didn't know that was on their extension list. It would make sense, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know either. We need to check the map of the
I think Bill
proposed
Smith
sidewalks.
is still going to be tuning in here at some point.
Okay.
He'll
Yeah.
speak up when he tunes in.
I mean, but that would be farther down the line anyway. I mean, it's going to be a while before they can actually physically finish a sidewalk.
But having a crosswalk there, regardless if they extend the sidewalk, it would be beneficial anyway. There's also Rand Place Extension comes out there. So it would make sense to have a crosswalk at that location. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Zach, do you want to talk about the storm sewer on North Main and Monroe?
So I think you all are aware at this point of the situation with the storm system that's running through 28 Monroe Ave. I have gotten a quote for the replacement. Currently, there's 12-inch clay tile pipe that's running through the Drake property and then connecting to a 15-inch corrugated metal pipe in 24's property. As far as I understand, we only own up to the property line between 28 and 24.
Well, let me explain that to everybody, Zach, just so everybody understands what happened there. What happened there is we believe that the Strassenbergs, when they built the house, the village told them to go to DOT to get permission to change storm sewer, because at that time, DOT owned all of that storm sewer. We don't know if they did. We don't think they ever did get permission. They just moved the storm sewer. So our responsibility at the storm sewer ends at the property line between the Drake's property and Eric and Christine's property. There's a catch basin just over the property line which is on their property, and essentially they own it. However, the bottom has rotted away. So if we spend $6,800 or $6,900, which is the quote Zach got today from Craig Prince.
Sorry, that's 8,500.
8,500, thank you, 8,500. We will have to do something with that catch basin. And so I asked Jeff to tune into this meeting early, because the question is, in this situation, do we repair the catch basin and build them? Or what do you think, given where the property line is and our need to repair that, so we're not dumping water that causes damage on their property? What's your suggestion, Jeff?
Well, that's their catch basin. Zach, am I recalling this correctly, that they added that catch basin, or they did not in 73?
The catch basin was added in 73, yes.
So that's absolutely their catch basin. It seems to me that they either have the choice of repairing the catch basin or not? And if, am I also understanding that if they don't, the water's just gonna flow down their property?
It's got to go right into their ponds because the bottom is gone on the catch basin.
I
So
would not, I don't think we ought to just repair it. I think we ought to get them on board, explain what's going on to them, because it really is their problem. I mean, if it were,
I already did that, Jeff. I talked to Christine this morning and explained the whole situation to her. They would be okay if we repaired it and then gave them a bill for whatever that repair was.
I guess
But-
we're gonna need, I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, but my question is, what do we need to protect ourselves from liability and to make sure that this isn't a gift? So that's where I need your expertise.
Right, we're gonna need a temporary easement, we're gonna need a deposit, an escrow agreement to cover the costs of the catch basin, which, with an escrow agreement, which says that if, once we do the work, we can just get the money.
Okay, so I think, can you draw those things up?
I'm gonna need
And-
some kind of description for the area, you know, where we're gonna be working. And I don't want to over engineer this, but I just need a general description of where we're gonna be working. So I can work that out.
I can write that up for you, Jeff, based on
Perfect.
that, using the drawings we have where the sewer is. I can write a description of an area that we would work within to repair the catch basin.
How much further are we gonna go than the catch basin?
No further
That's
than the
it.
catch basin. That's it.
So, okay. What are they gonna do
Okay.
about is their pipe okay, or is that the purpose of the cameraing?
Well, Zach got a quote from, what was it, Zach? From
With
Scanix?
the camera,
Skinix.
Yeah.
it's going to be approximately $2 a linear foot, and I estimate to be about 365 feet. So somewhere around $800 for Scanex to come through and camera the line that is on their property.
So that's also gotta be their expense.
Well, maybe we should leave that up to their choice, and that way we can just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
chances are water hasn't been running through that pipe in a while if the catch basin, from the picture I saw that Zach gave me. What do you think, Zach?
Some water is going to get through there, but not all the water. Some of it was pushing back on Drake's property, down toward the connection at 24.
Previously, when it rained, when you walked on the towpath across the canal, you could hear the water coming out there. In about the last, I don't know, 8-9 months, I haven't heard that at all. So I don't think much water has been going through that pipe in recent months.
These people sound pretty cooperative. Wouldn't they want to know that they have a good drainage system
I
down
think
through there?
so. What I can do is I can follow up and call them and update them based on this conversation and see where they want to go from here. And tell them
Okay.
that what are the two things that you said we have to draw?
We're gonna probably need a temporary easement and an escrow agreement. So once Zach tells us what the number is gonna be for that catch basin, we'll draw the escrow agreement accordingly.
All right. Okay, I will follow up and call Christine back and just update her with what we just talked about. Okay. All right. Last thing, Zach, while you're here, I talked to Zach earlier today about the stop signs on South and Sutherland. It's been a challenge for Zach because until recently he was down 2 staff people. He's still down 1 staff person and has been juggling a bunch of things, not only with the storm sewer issues, but also with the paving and the curb work that's happening up at Village Grove. So I asked Zach to give us some idea because Dan sent out an email earlier today of when those the stop sign would be installed at Sutherland and on South Street.
So we're shooting for, I'm hoping either later on today or Thursday that we should be able to start setting the signposts out, and maybe Thursday afternoon we should have the signs up.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thanks,
We're
Zach.
trying. You're welcome.
Exciting.
I know, I'm excited. I like stop
Renee
signs.
gets as excited as I do over traffic count. All right, Zach, what else do you have?
Just our typical stuff. We've watered flowers every day. Lily, I wanted to talk to you about how much longer you wanted to push forward with that on the
Yeah,
weekends at
probably
least.
stop.
Done with it? Okay. So what about during the weeks?
Just, yeah, stop at the end of the week.
The end of this week and be done with it and take them down?
Just stop watering for now, but maybe wait a couple of weeks before we take them down. I think they'll be all right for a couple of
They
weeks.
will die quickly if we
Yes.
don't water them, Lily. So I would say when you stop watering, the flowers need to come down. Otherwise, they're going to look terrible.
They're coming down, but leave the ones at the four corners. Leave the urns at the four corners because the garden group wants to harvest those.
Okay. Should we continue to water the flowers at the little house and also the
I didn't know
the
you were
village
doing
hall?
that. I didn't know you were
Yeah,
doing that.
we do the little house, the town hall, and the village hall.
I would say then let's water our flowers through the week. They're just starting now to turn. They're starting to get that brown. I can see it on
Yeah,
the bottom of some of the
underneath.
baskets. So let's do it through the week. We'll take the baskets down. Those other flowers will continue to flower because the weather probably will be nice enough, at least through the end of the month, to continue to water those other flowers, including the four urns at the four corners.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Very
All
good.
right.
So we started striping roads. Obviously, we had to do a lot of paving to get to that point. So we will continue on as soon as we can. Hopefully, more toward the middle of this month. Trim trees where necessary. Picked up brush, swept roads, mowed lawns, and multiple UFPO stakeouts and requests, along with anything and everything else that has come our way, which is a lot. So
can I add
that's
one
it.
more thing to your list? Could you buy some black and gold paint so I can repaint that plaque for the the garden?
Yes.
Not the highest priority, but when you get a chance, that'd be great.
I'll remember it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
You
Zach.
want me to stick around through the end of this meeting?
It's up to you.
All right. I'll be here if you need me.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank
All right. Yes. Yep. I saw a hand.
Bill
Mine,
Smith is here.
Lily.
Lily? Yep.
Yes. Zach, are the repainting of the light posts on the list for this year or next spring?
Next spring, not this year, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, the pavilions are probably going to need to be restained next year. They're starting to look weathered. So I think we should put that on the list for next year's budget as well. I see Bill Smith is here, so I'm going to. You're done, right, Zach? Yep. Okay. Bill Smith, would you like to speak to the board?
Yes, thank you, Bob. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. I just wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you very briefly about our joint village and town active transportation plan. And I want to ask the board if you would consider sometime very soon setting a joint hearing with the town board so that we can get the plan adopted. Now, just to give you a little bit of recent history on this, as you know, this is something that's been in progress for most of the past 5 years. The steering committee that worked on this last met in July of 2019 and came up with a list of final recommendations. These have been posted for some months now, I think since last fall, on the website of both the town and the village, the basic plan and what was called the 2019 supplement, because it hadn't yet been integrated into the software that Matt Ingalls used to produce the active transportation plan. The mayor made me aware that the village needed to have its planning board review the ATP in light of the waterfront plan, which made perfect sense. And I thought, okay, so we can wait, let's wait for that. And I saw some weeks ago, I think it was Justin Lightgeb who posted a list of recommendations that came out of the Village Planning Board for the active transportation plan. And as I think I may have mentioned to Trustee Stetzer briefly one day, to me, those recommendations all looked uniformly excellent. And I certainly support them all. I've become aware recently that there may be some additional time the planning board needs to take. And there are reasons why I think it's in the interest of the entire community and both municipalities for us to have our hearing and adopt our plan sooner rather than later. Because in many respects, both the village government and the town government have been moving forward on the basis of recommendations and certainly the spirit of the plan for some time now. One outstanding example is the pedestrian safety plan that the village has come up with and got DOT approval for. An example on the town side might be the East Avenue sidewalk. You get the idea. That's the easy part, but we want to adopt it because the state agencies, and in particular the State Department of Transportation, doesn't have to take it into account until the boards of both municipalities have adopted the plan. I certainly have no problem with the concept of the Village Planning Board carrying on a review of this plan and making other recommendations. And at any time, we can do an update of the active transportation plan. But my recommendation and my request to the village board would be that we adopt now what we have now. We will then lock in place the requirement for the state to take it under consideration. And it does not in the least bit prevent us from going forward and adding additional material to the plan as an update. I would also remind you that however amount of time any further review by the Village Planning Board may take, any additional supplements to the active transportation plan as a condition of the grant that we received for it would have to be reviewed by the State Department of Transportation and by emergency services. So I'm not putting anybody on the spot right now. I'm not asking for you to make a commitment right now that you'll do it. I simply wanted you to be aware that on the town side, we have been waiting for a while to be able to get a joint public hearing with the village so we can move forward on our plan. To the extent that it needs more, fine. My expectation is that, my hope certainly would be that the quality of whatever else is to come from the Village Planning Board will be every bit as good as what I've seen from it so far. And as I said, I think its recommendations were across the board excellent. But I think we could be making a mistake and damaging our own interests if we allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good in this case. So I would ask you to please consider giving us some dates so that we can set a joint public hearing sometime, ideally in the next month, to be able to adopt the village and town joint active transportation plan.
Well said. Any discussion from the board?
No.
Comments?
I have one question.
Yes, Lily, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. For the joint meeting, will the emergency services be present at that meeting and have comments at that time, or do they weigh in afterwards?
They have already weighed in with their comments. They have reviewed the draft. And one of the reasons it took a long time is because we actually amended parts of the plan to try to come up with suggestions that still met the goal of traffic calming, but were acceptable to the emergency services group. And Renee, Frank, and I all spent a lot of time working with them to get to the draft that we have today. And Renee, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Kelly Klein was also on the steering committee through the process, but I think Mayor Corby, you're talking strictly about the pedestrian safety plan, those trouble spots that we identified. That was what I was involved with the emergency responders, but I do know
Well,
that
we went through a similar process with Frank on the
Okay.
active transportation
Okay,
plan.
great. That was before my
so-
time, so
Okay, I didn't realize
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
It all blends together.
yeah.
But we spent a lot of time with the emergency services group and really established a good constructive relationship with them to get their buy-in for the plan as it stands.
Okay,
So
that's what
I-
I wanted to
okay.
understand. Thank you, that we are at a point where they have signed off on the present.
Yes.
Present draft.
That
Okay,
is correct. That is correct, right.
Okay,
The
thank you.
last step was getting the comments from the planning board, and one of the things we want to do tonight is schedule a special meeting of the trustees to review the comments that we received from the planning board. But I would agree with Bill. I think the prudent thing really is to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing, if something comes up, we don't necessarily have to adopt it then. I assume that we might, but I think at least because we have to coordinate not just one board, but two boards, I think we should go ahead and schedule a public hearing.
And again, I would add, I mean, each board has to make an independent decision, but I think the optimum situation would be for if we are both at a point where we can adopt the plan as we have it now, understanding that there will be, and there are in fact in progress, potential updates to the plan. I don't want to be in an awkward situation where one of us approves it and the other doesn't, but again,
I think you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
And I think we can, if we do approve it, I've suggested that we might approve it with the commitment that we go ahead and make the additional changes that are being recommended by the planning board. And, planning all plans, including comprehensive plans in any official plan of a municipality, ideally is a dynamic document that evolves over time. Our 2002 comprehensive plan had 5 amendments to it before we finally redid it last year with our new comprehensive plan. So it's expected, and several things have changed recently, and we're still doing research on the whole topic of speed cameras. So it's quite sensible to continue to allow this plan to evolve and update so it stays current with our current conditions and current needs.
Okay, well, I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to address the village board. I will log off and leave you in peace at this point, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that said, I would number one, ask that we schedule a special meeting to discuss the recommendations from the planning board.
Is that a motion, Bob?
That is a motion.
I will second that. Lanfear?
Okay. Do we want to look at our calendars and try to establish a date?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I would vote that we do it as soon as possible to keep everything moving along here. Would someone like to throw out some dates that would be available to them?
How much, Dorothea, tell me again how many days notice we need for a special meeting?
3 days.
Okay.
How about next Tuesday or next Wednesday?
Let's see, the 16th. I am free on the 16th. That's Wednesday.
Does that work for everyone else?
Wednesday,
And
September
Renee,
16th.
What time? What time are we thinking?
Well, didn't Dan tell us he's available after 6:30? So
I think that was only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think Wednesdays let me find he'll be joining us shortly. I thought that was just Tuesday and Thursday that he wasn't available until after 6:30.
I think
Well,
you're
then
right.
I would
Yeah, I think
I would
those are the nights
suggest
he teaches.
maybe we try 5 o'clock before we all get tired.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's what I was going to suggest. And then if we need to shift once Dan
We can
joins.
shift it when Dan
Yeah.
comes in here if that's necessary.
What time did you
Okay.
say, Bob?
5 o'clock on Wednesday, September, whatever date that is.
16th.
16th. Is this a joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Board?
I think the planning board said they would only have 1 or 2 representatives there, but it really is our
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, we need to
you
talk.
know,
Yeah, we
among
need
ourselves.
to, yeah,
Okay.
talk through the yes.
Okay, that sounds,
Hey, Dan, we don't want to put you on the spot because you just joined. Are you available on the 16th, September 16th at 5 p.m.? You're for the LWRP comments, just a trustee meeting to
I'm
look
not-
over those comments.
I have a 5 o'clock commitment on Wednesdays from 5 to 6, but I'm
Okay.
available from 6 on. I've even got afternoons on Wednesday. I just don't have 5 to 6. So I could do any
let me
time between 3 and 5, or I could do after 6.
Are we allowed to have a meeting at like
Would
3?
6:30?
You're more
We
than
could.
welcome to do
If it,
afternoon.
well, let's do afternoon then. If that works for everyone, let's do 3 to 5.
I can't make it at 3.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
Frank. All right.
Is 6:30? Would 6:30 on Wednesday work better for everybody? Can we get
Okay.
everybody at 6:30?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll schedule that.
That's the LWRP on the ATP, or it's the
Yes.
review of the planning board's notes?
Yeah.
Review of the planning board's comments.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
We're
And
not doing the LWRP. They're still doing it, correct?
No, we're just having a working meeting to go over their comments in detail so that we can give them feedback. That's all. Like we discussed at when was that? Last week? Friday,
Yeah.
Thursday?
Okay, so that's, so we'll have that Wednesday. And then I would also make a motion that we allow Dorothea to coordinate a date for a public hearing on the ATP to be coordinated with the town of Pittsford, per the request of Supervisor Bill Smith.
I just want to remind the board and double check with Jeff. I believe this is going to require Monroe County board review. So we can't schedule it for this month. I'm going to need 30 days. Is that correct, Jeff?
That is correct, but wouldn't you need 30 days anyway in terms of your publication and notice?
Publication, I can get 2 weeks earlier than I can get the 30 days with Monroe County. That's what I'm trying to.
Well, I think the 30 days is fine, because I think that gives us more time to deal with the planning board's comments anyway. So whatever timeline we need to work on, but I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we can have the public hearing.
Do they need to finish their LWRP before we can have that public hearing?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Then how do we know when they're going to finish that LWRP if we haven't given them
Right.
comments?
That's what I was going to suggest. I don't think we can set the meeting until we go over the comments next week to get a feeling for what we're up against. And
You could set the meeting with the thought that if we're not done, you could adjourn the hearing.
okay.
And table,
Yeah.
and table it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
At
good
least
way.
it gets the process started, and we've got to, we're on our way to getting it done.
And Dorothea needs to know that date in order to send out the county referral, right, Dorothea?
Yes.
So I think that you should set or do a motion to set the date no sooner than 30 days as coordinated with the town clerk. Then and that would allow Dorothea, can we do it that way or not?
I'm good with that.
So you're going to leave an open-ended date, but you're going to authorize Dorothea to work out a mutually convenient date with the town clerk, which will then be published as the public hearing date.
Right. And I think after our meeting next week, we should have a better feel how we want to handle the comments from the planning board and how we want to fold them into the active plan transportation plan document. Okay.
Was that
All
going to
right.
be a vote, Bob? Were we doing a motion and second on that for me to
Did
set
we
that?
did we have a
We
second
did a
to my motion?
Didn't do a second.
Okay, we need a second, somebody?
Lanfear second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes. I will point out that it says Justin, I'm not sure if it's like Gibb or Valistra, have posted a comment. I'm not sure if the board saw that, or would you like me to read it?
Go ahead and read it, Dorothea.
Okay, Justin indicates, I believe that this is not necessarily time that the planning board needs for review. Rather, we are waiting to see what changes the trustees make in order to render a determination on LWRP consistency on basis of those changes. And then David Marshall commented, I second that.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Hey,
right.
guys, just for the record, for the other people on the call, the trustees knew I was going to be late on this. I have a commitment past 6, and we set these meeting times at the end of calendar year 2019, and this came up. And so can I just make a motion now? Can we just do this right now to say, hey, can we move our remainder of this year's trustees meetings to 6:30 or later on Tuesdays?
Dan, to 6:30, is that, does that work for you? I have no problem with moving the
6:30
time
is
back.
the earliest, 7 is better, but I also respect that the later we go, these can sometimes go hours and hours. So 6:30 just means I kind of have to do it from my university office. It's not that big a deal.
I will
How does
second.
everybody else? Okay.
I will second
right.
that. 6:30 is fine.
To 6:30 to 6:30, or
Yeah, 6:30
I don't
is
care.
fine.
Doesn't make any difference to me. Okay. Dorothea, could we ask for a vote?
Okay, I'm just going to verify. We have a motion, was that by Dan and then seconded by Lily? Does that sound correct? You guys
Correct.
kind of.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next item we have is we had some comments submitted by Valerie Couchane from Pittsford Lumber on their concerns regarding the closure that will happen during the replacement of the State Street Bridge. I did talk to Valerie over the phone. She seemed generally supportive of the what we talked with DOT last about, which is the possibility of 2 stoplights that would allow gaps in the traffic on Shane Place, hopefully allowing people to get out of driveways at Northfield Common and other businesses on Shane Place more easily, because even though it's not the official detour, we do anticipate there will be increased traffic on the road during the time of the bridge closure. Any comments on those? They were included in your packet. Lily?
Good data.
Yes, I would propose, Bob, that to speak with Valerie and the group once again, because there were several suggestions, while good, were not within our jurisdiction to actually have happen. So I would like to keep those lines of communication open. We have time to see that, so that they understand what we are able to control and to contribute to their issue that they will have with the bridge closing.
I explained to Valerie that we will be having more meetings with DOT. We're not sure when DOT is going to be ready. But in addition to changes to the pedestrian safety improvements they're planning, they are also refining their interim plan for when the bridge is closed. And the last time when Renee and I met with them virtually in July, they promised us another follow-up meeting as they refine their plan for that period.
Okay, so then might I assume that just by in the interest of being continuous with this, that you and Renee would also meet with Valerie and her group regarding what is possible for us to mediate and what is remediate and what is not. So
I told Valerie that as soon as we have more information, we would be back in touch to keep them abreast of where things are going and what the actual plan is.
Okay.
I think, Lily, you're talking about the suggestions that came up that she included at the bottom of her emails, right? Where some of those things were like, put a
Yes.
road behind
roads
the,
behind
right,
Howard, so
right.
forth.
So you just want to make sure that we communicate to her and the group what
What's possible.
things yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that?
I just want to remind the public we have several people watching tonight. If they wish to submit a comment, please hit that chat button. I'll be happy to relay any information to the board, or if you're here for an agenda item. Thank you.
Great. Okay, next item we have an informational meeting on the Northfield Commons patio and parking area. Casey submitted a letter and I see that Casey's on. Casey, would you like to address the board?
Hi, thanks, Bob. I'm actually going to pass on to Jenny Collins, who should be on as well. She's going to kind of kick things off.
Okay, great.
Thank you, though.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, village members. I have met a couple of you in the past, but I'm the landlord at 7, 8, 9, 10 Shane Place, and with my son manage those properties. As I'm sure you all know, my father did that before me for many, many years. We've been working with Seth and Casey, as well as the owners at Aladdin's, Coal Tower, and Simply Crepes. And for almost 3 months now, we just looked it up. I think it was somewhere around June 10th, we were able to start the shared common area. And first, we would like to thank the village trustees for allowing us to move forward and do that. We've gotten some wonderful feedback, but would like to hear from all of you how you think that idea of sharing the space for people to congregate outdoors, when who knows when we'll be able to do indoors the way we used to do, and see what you think of that whole plan.
Speaking for myself, I think it's been a fantastic amenity, and I think really it was so successful this season that we've talked that it's something that even after COVID is done, we may want to reconsider how to do this every year, because it certainly adds to the ambience of the waterfront. We know it's helped business down there, and I know from enjoying it myself and seeing many people I know there, I think it's been a hit from every perspective. That's what I would say.
Nice.
Lily, yeah, I saw your hand up.
This is Trustee Lanfear. I agree. Thank you. I agree with you, Bob. And also, I would like to see it utilized even further, even more, because several times when I've gone by, the chairs have been up and it has not been. It's been shown that it's not to be occupied. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to, why that has happened, why it isn't able to be used from noon on. I was wondering why that happened, because often when I went by, it wasn't open. So how, could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, Jenny, I can jump in here.
Okay.
So the chairs, we do lean up we're at Lock 32 is the last to close. So when we close it up, we lean the chairs forward just in the case that it rains, so the water doesn't pool on the chairs. But we certainly don't put them up because we don't have the ability to, but we do that every night. And then the Adirondack chairs are rather expensive, so we do lock those until we open back up, just to be sure there's no theft at night. But otherwise, it's open. I'm down there quite often before open hours, and even before Aladdin's and Simply Crepes in the Cole Tower open for lunch. There's people out there having coffee. There's no posted signs with hours or anything like that. So it should be relatively open. I certainly am not down there to kind of prep the space each morning before we open, but it should be. It's an open area. There's no rope or anything. There's no gate that's locked. It's an open area that can be accessible pretty much at any time.
Okay, super. Thank you.
So I want to just add, I don't think a day goes by that I don't hear somebody say to me, it'd be really great if we could make that permanent, or it would be really great if we could extend it past the summer and figure out some way to do it. I love it. I haven't heard anybody complain about it. Literally every single day somebody says that to me, and they say similar things about what's going on at Rachel's. Similar things about Label 7 has expanded their seating outdoors. I think JoJo's has done a little bit more in that regard. I just hear nothing but positive response. I'm sure there are some people that think it's a negative thing, but it's an overwhelming number of people think it's a positive thing. And we really thank you guys for the vision and the idea to make that work, because I think it's made the village better. So thank you.
It's Lampier again. I would like, however, to point out that at some point we need a discussion regarding the Planning and Zoning Board's role, and the fact that we need to determine the process, because we certainly cannot circumvent the process and exclude them from their role in outside seating and site plan. So we're going to have to determine a path forward for that, I think.
I think there's two pieces here. I think one is, I think we should extend it as long as the businesses would like it extended, as long as the weather lasts and as long as it's useful to you, because sometimes the weather, even in November, is conducive to having people outside. And whatever we can do to support our businesses, we certainly want to do that this season. I think longer term, we need to have a process so that some of this could become either seasonal or permanent. I think we all agree that there hasn't been any downsides. I haven't heard a single complaint about it in any of the locations where it happened. All it does is it improves the business for the businesses that have expanded the seating. It also, in many areas, it provides a better experience for people that come to visit the village. And certainly the ambience on Shane Place is greatly enhanced by Aladdin's, this terrace, and the outdoor seating at Label 7 and Olives.
I agree. That's not reasonable.
Just so I'm not leaving anyone out.
I have a question for Jeff that piggybacks on what everyone's saying. If we extend this for the immediate to get us through this pandemic, and to give us flexibility and give the businesses flexibility, can we rewrite the resolution or the local law to extend through the pandemic? Like, what kind of language do we need to have, or does it have to be a time stamp on there? Like, do we have to have a date when it expires like we currently have, or can we say as long as the conditions exist?
You currently have a sunset provision, as you have just alluded to, and I can't remember. I think it might be October 31st.
Yes, I believe it's October 31st.
I would prefer an end date, even if it was December 31st, so that we know when the building inspector, code enforcement officer's authority ends. And then you could morph into a process where it shifts back to special permitting via the planning board, if that's how you wanted to handle it, or whatever other way you wanted to handle it. But I think we ought to have a time when the CEO's authority absolutely ends.
Then I would make a motion that we extend our resolution to December 1st, which is in the middle of winter. So that at least gives the businesses the opportunity to maximize every bit of good weather we have this season.
I agree. That Lampier second. I'll second that.
I would phrase it differently, that the building inspector's authority and any permits issued by him expire on December 1st, 2020.
I amend my motion accordingly.
Is is there any reason to not extend that further so that if it's a warm January or February, I don't know,
Love
like
your
what,
optimism.
well,
Your
I just
optimism.
mean we get some bright, bright, lovely sunny days. And as we have seen from this group, there's been just immense creativity to figure out a way to stay open and to engage and provide a lovely gathering space. So is there any harm to doing it, longer than that?
I mean, that's certainly a trustee issue, not an attorney issue. But it would seem to me that if you are contemplating a longer or a long-term path for this kind of operation, you ought to be able to get that in place somewhere, whenever. But no, there's no legal reason not to do it.
And if I can just add something, this is Seth Clark with Lock 32. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody here and the trustees alike for allowing us the opportunity to do this. On a sales and financial perspective on our business, nearly 90% of what we're bringing in every day is coming from that outdoor space. And the reason I mention that is, number one, because it'd be tenuous to think where we would be without that space right now with the pandemic. So again, thank you. But number two, I think it really speaks volumes to where people's comfort level is. Even with a 50% capacity indoors, people aren't taking advantage of it. They'd much rather be outdoors. We've been blessed with great weather this summer. And I can think of times that we've had the windows open at Lock, the big windows in January or February. So Renee, to your point, it would be a huge thing for us to be able to not be limited to that. For example, if there was a event on TV where we could creatively do something outside or watch it outdoors and not have to worry about any barriers to entry that space, that would be really good for us. And I really think overall that behavior's changing. You think about how people are accessing outdoors now and not having the option to go indoors necessarily for football games, for things like that. So we're going to continue to be creative in order to maximize that space outdoors. So, not to belabor it, but anything to allow us access would be very much appreciated.
How many months was this original? Was it 6 months, Jeff? Do you remember?
October 31st, I believe.
I just verified that it was October 31st it expires.
Well, because I think we all agree we don't want to eliminate any potential options where it will be beneficial to the businesses. And if you can do it in February and they have a virtual or a Super Bowl with no people in the stadium, and that's what it takes, so be it. Why don't we do another 6 month, and then we can review it again? If the COVID is still an issue in 6 months, then we can extend it further. That way we can adjust the sunset to the conditions. And in the meantime, we can also start working on a process so we can create a law that will allow some of this to continue in perpetuity, so you'll have access to this every year. So I think there's actually two tracks of action. One to deal with the short-term issue, and the second is to begin work on drafting a code that will deal with the situation long-term.
Bob, we have a couple comments from the public. Would you like me to read them, or you want to wait?
Yeah, why don't you read them?
Okay, David Ferris stated, why not extend till at least candlelight night or New Year's Eve?
Okay.
Art Harris shared, what about conditions to protect the residential neighbors in the event of a noise issue? He also commented, P.S. still experiencing dumping of glass bottles and dumpsters behind a residential property by the restaurants late at night.
Okay, those are two separate issues. Thank you, Art. Dave, Bob just mentioned let's do 6 months, so that would cover all the way through New Year. So I think we're good there. Your first question, what about conditions to protect the residential neighbors in the event of noise issues? That it's still under the authority of the CEO. So he has the authority to issue citations and warnings and shut things down that are not meeting our neighborly requirements. And then the dumping of glass bottles, please send us some specifics on that, and we will follow up with the businesses down at Northfield Common.
But I think Art's comment underscores the need to draft legislation for the long term, so these things can be allowed, just like the special permit process, that will still take into account the environmental effects. We know that's been a perennial nuisance to the residents of State Street, and it's continued. So I think, you know, we'll talk to Steve, and we can probably take care of it in the short term, but I think it is something to keep our eye on in the long term as we draft an ordinance where we may allow some of this stuff to continue, because we do want to make sure that our residential neighborhoods remain livable.
John has it.
John Limbeck.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, is this courtesy that we've got down at, I'll call it the Collins properties, is that expected to extend up to Northfield Commons?
I think it would depend on the business owners if they want to continue it.
Well, I would strongly suggest that Olives and Label 7, they've done their due diligence to expand their outdoor seating, but we've got a scofflaw owner up there. Now, I don't know Jenny Collins, but I know her dad and what he did while he was managing those properties. I know what Seth and Casey did in order to adhere to village code. I know what they've done at Label 7 and at the Coal Tower, but we've got a brewery coming in that has yet to even prove itself as an entity. And with the owner that they've got and their constant ignorance of the village laws, and we've had this going on, you know, Dan says that we could have the CEO take care of this. We've tried that. We've even had the sheriffs go down there and tell them that they can't run their big mowers and their fertilizing equipment up and down the State Street sidewalks. You know, I don't even think that their site plan down at Northfield Commons has been approved. And this brewery, I think, went in under 7 different applications before we finally had a determination that it was agricultural products. I mean, it started out as a waiver from the moratorium, and then it went to a restaurant, and it's just morphed into what it is. And now we want to give them outside seating before they've even had an opportunity to begin operation. You know, I've sat there at 3 o'clock in the morning when that dumpster comes in and gets emptied. And when you take a metal dumpster full of bottles and put it 25 feet up in the air and drop it into a metal tub, they don't care. I'm sorry. I love the businesses down at the Collins properties. I wish them all the success, but Fox does not deserve the consideration that you want to extend to them. And I feel sorry for Label 7 and for Olives, because they would be potentially impacted by this. But as a board, I don't think you can give these people this kind of courtesy at this point in time. I'm dead set against it. I mean, I've got Fox behind me and I got State Street in front of me. You know how my days go? You know, it's one assault on my senses after another. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, John. Comments from the board?
Yes, I would like a clarification. At this time, what we are discussing is specifically the area between Aladdin's and Lock 32. Let us refer to it as the public patio area. That is what we are addressing. Is that correct?
That was certainly my intent when we started the meeting, was to talk about, yes, that shared space.
Could we respond to this individually, Jeff? To give an extension just to the Western Shane Place area?
I'm not sure what the basis would be for that. because you've built in the controls. If we're not following the controls, that's a different issue. But then you're treating two different landowners differently. You know, is there a basis? Maybe the nearby residents, but currently your resolution dealt with any tavern or restaurant that's operating in the village, and it authorized the CEO to allow outside seating with controls he felt appropriate and proper for every tavern and restaurant in the village. So now you're talking about singling out properties that will not be permitted when you've previously allowed them all to be permitted.
All right, so that's a problem. But
But-
then,
But
Go
Jeff,
ahead.
be careful of your language there. We didn't allow them all to be permitted. We allowed the CEO to use his discretion to permit or reject them.
Right.
Well,
Big
correct.
difference.
But
Yep.
I'm sorry, Dan, were you done?
No, just there's a big difference in the language there.
Yeah, well, I wasn't intending any different in language because the argument still is the same. You're allowing the CEO to permit or not permit village-wide, and now you're changing it to non-village wide, excluding properties from his ability to permit.
well, I think it's unfortunate that Steve isn't here tonight, but it sounds like what we need to do is, because I wasn't aware the bottle issue was still occurring, but that's an unacceptable nuisance. So I think we've got to deal with that one. And if we get requests at the other end, then Steve has got to use his authority to address the late night nuisances, because that's not fair to the residents.
Agreed.
Bob, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to point out that in Steve's report, I do believe he indicated that there were some outstanding site plan issues in the Northfield Common Fox portion, Fox-owned area. So could perhaps that be a reason why he would not issue a permit for outside seating in that area at this time, so that it would not affect the patio, public patio between Aladdin's and Lock 32. But since it was under his discretion, the Northfield Common patio, potential patio or whatever they're proposing, I didn't see what it was, could be affected by the fact that there are outstanding site plan issues. This is a question.
There is in the code a general prohibition against granting permits where there's a violation on the property.
So might that be an answer to the concern of the residents, the valid concerns of the residents on State Street regarding any potential outside patio for Northfield Common?
I think it's probably a solution, but maybe not an answer. I mean, the answer is always still going to be enforcement in terms of those nuisance type issues. And in this case, you've given Steve the authority to revoke or modify based upon ongoing problems. But he really, if there are violations, probably there should not be these permits issued to begin with.
Okay.
But that's a CEO issue in question.
Well, I think we've got an enforcement issue that we have to deal with in Northfield Commons. And I think the comments from John and from Art make that very clear. I think Casey and Jenny have presented a good argument for doing another 6-month extension of the permit that we have granted for the outdoor seating. So I think we've got two separate things that we have to deal with here.
Mayor Corby, I think you misspoke. You said extending the permit. You meant extending our.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I did misspeak.
That's okay.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Bob, do you want me to run through the additional comments that came in while you guys were talking?
Sure, please.
Okay. Dave Ferris comments, doesn't each business need to apply so it's case by case with limits?
Yes.
He also said the Fox Brew Pub, I think it was approved without outside seating.
Correct.
Art Pierce commented that you were correct, Bob. Thank you. I fully agree in support of all what John Limbeck said. Elisa Plummer said John raises a good point, but wouldn't his concern be compliance issues involving fines?
That's what I just said. Right. It is a compliance issue. It's an enforcement issue that needs to be addressed. Okay. All right. Dorothea, I think we have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
It was seconded.
So that's 6 months from when? From the expiration or 6 months from now?
6 months from the expiration.
Better.
Okay, Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Stetser,
That's her aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
May I make one comment before we leave this?
Sure.
Please.
First of all, thank you very much for passing it and giving us some more time. We had met a week or so ago and had a lot of other creative ideas, things like, you know, hot chocolate when there's ice skating on the canal and all those things. So I think to have this additional time for the tenants and my son and I to think about these other ideas is much appreciated, and we look forward to carrying that out. We also wonder over the winter when we have some time for planning, we had been thinking about the potential for some other covered structure, maybe something like a portico or something that resembles the Port of Pittsford structure that is there now, that went up 25 years ago to the year, I looked it up, and would just like to understand a little bit better, if we were thinking about proposing something like that, what exactly would be that process? Would that be an architectural review board? Would that be, if you could help us understand so
Sure.
that we can make good decisions about the, potentially continuing to invest in this area.
I think obviously if it's a permanent structure, it would go to the Historic Preservation Board. That's a given. If it's a structure that would accommodate seating or change the parking configuration from the approved site plan, it would also require site plan approval and probably a special permit if it had seating associated with a single restaurant or other venue. Then so there would probably be a 3-step process for that.
Bob, if it was, depending on where the property lines were, it might also involve a variance.
It might. I don't think there's any setback requirements in that district, so it's pretty flexible. So it depends on the size and the location. But in working with Steve, those questions could be answered very easily, Jenny.
Okay,
And
thank you very much.
This is Casey. Bob, real quick, and I'll throw it out to the entire board, but Bob, especially with your architectural background, do you have any creative ideas in how to better use that space during inclement weather in the summer, maybe an early spring or a day stolen in December or January, as somebody referenced earlier? And I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. We can take it offline too, but we'd love that feedback.
You know what I would do, Casey? Why don't I meet you someday down there? Let's walk. I'd give you a better answer if I put my architect's hat on and walk around it with you, and then we could kind of brainstorm together.
That would be tremendous. And I'm sure the Collins crew and Pierre, I think, has called in, but was in the car, would love that opportunity, because we're meeting constantly trying to come up creatively.
Why don't you text me if you can coordinate, with whoever wants to participate? I'd be happy to meet you down there, and we can do it, as soon as everyone's available.
That would be great. Thank you, Bob.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next item. We have a special permit application for a new restaurant to be located at 5 South Main Street. Tonight, we just have to make a motion to set the public hearing, I believe.
Correct. I believe the applicant was going to be present to review what they're looking to do. If we can just give a second and see if we can find them. If they're here.
Dorothea, I didn't see that material in the packet. Is it there?
It just came out in the late packet today. I just
Okay.
got it today.
Okay.
I'm 99, I won't guarantee.
The last packet I have is from 11:54 this morning, and I didn't see it in there.
No, it came out after
Oh,
2.
there it is. There's an updated one from 2:42. Okay,
Tom,
I haven't reviewed it.
Tim Paranello,
Correct.
and it's for a Mexican restaurant.
Is Mr. Paranello here?
Is anyone here from the Mexican restaurant operation?
I'm going to unmute our callers to see if he's here. If
I am
Okay.
online. I am on.
I found him, I'm okay. He's
All
caller
right.
number 2.
Hi, Tim. Do you
Yes.
want to talk a little bit about what you're proposing at the spot next to the other business on South Main?
Yes, we are planning on opening up an authentic Mexican restaurant in the space previously occupied by the kitchen. We don't intend on making many changes inside a little bit, but nothing major so far. We would love to be able to make a walkway from our current business, which is the Blue Horn Tequileria Oak Room space, to into the new restaurant. We're still working to find out if that's a possibility.
Okay,
Questions from board?
I do have a question. This is Trustee Lanfear. I think I would like to have more information regarding that portion, and also have input from our attorney regarding looking at a special use permit or approving a special use permit without having all of the information, because I think we're talking about 2 different operations in 2 different buildings with 2 different building owners, not business owners, but 2 different building owners. And there's a firewall in between. So I think that there are a number of other entities that would be involved in your decision making. I think one being the Board of Health regarding passing back and forth and how that would, I think I would want a lot more information regarding that before looking at a special use permit, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, we passed it through the Board of Health, had the inspector in last week, and spoke to a number of inspectors, and they said it was not something against any of their rules, that it would be fine as long as that if there was a firewall, and we're trying to find that out, if there is a firewall in between the two buildings, that we then would have to obviously create a fire door that would replace that wall. That's something we're trying to find out, because that could get costly.
Okay, well, that's something, I don't think you have to solve that tonight,
No,
because either way, the application can go forward with or without the door. And that'll be an issue that you'll be in discussion with a code enforcement officer with. So with that being said, I'd ask Dorothea if we can identify a date that we can schedule a public hearing to hear the application.
October 13th.
Okay, I'll make a motion to hold a public hearing on October 13th to consider the application of Tim Paranello to open a Mexican restaurant at 5 South Main Street. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion. Trustee Galusha.
Okay, Dorothea, would you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Hey, Dorothy, can you just explain to Tim before we lose him why it takes to the 13th? There are reasons for this. It's not really our choice that it would take us a little bit more than a month. Can you kind of go into why that is?
That's the first available meeting after the amount of time required for the posting. Unless the board set a special meeting, that's the only way I can get it in. With delays in publishing to the public, I'll automatically lose a week. So we're just delayed with the way the newspaper comes out.
What I would add to what Dorothy is saying, Tim, is New York State has these draconian publishing requirements for public hearing that are not unique to the Village of Pittsford, but that's what requires the lengthy delay and lengthens the process. That's what we're trying to explain. And I'm sorry for the delay, but we really don't have a choice.
That is perfectly fine. We're not near ready yet.
But we're looking forward to Mexican food, and we hope the COVID is over sooner so we can pack the restaurant.
Real quick, Mr. Parinello, I would just ask that you forward all information for the Board of Trustees to me, and that way I can make sure it lands for them to review prior to the meeting.
Okay, I will do that.
At least a week ahead if you can, please.
Yes.
Great,
Thank you.
Moving on, I'd like to just, we didn't really touch on this on Zach's report, but I just wanted to update on St. Louis drainage. There was a meeting out on site with Scott Harder, Zach, myself, and someone from the DOT. We did determine that the storm sewer on South Main Street, according to the DOT, is also our pipe. They're saying it's our pipe now, which means we do have authority to allow people to tie into the pipe. This allows St. Louis to tie into our drainage system, and they can go ahead and make improvements to their property to deal with the excess runoff from the additional pavement that they added years ago, which is causing the flooding problem at the sidewalk and at the entrance driveway by the north side of the church. Do you want to add anything to that, Zach?
No, I believe you covered it all pretty well.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, moving on. Next item, we have discussion on the village board speeding informational meeting. Dan, would you like to talk about what you were thinking on the informational meeting on speeding?
I mean, it was discussed at the last trustees meeting. It's been discussed in email, so you guys know what it is. So I really want to turn it over to you guys. The invitation is open for you guys to attend. I'd love for it to be a trustees function.
Well, we haven't had if it is a village board meeting, it would require a vote to set a meeting and an agenda. We haven't really done that, so I would suggest that we have a discussion about it. That we haven't had a full board meeting to discuss it. Obviously, it's an important topic for all of us. It also is relevant because we're also scheduling the public hearing for the active transportation plan.
Okay, I'm kind of curious. You guys know what it is. I don't need to reiterate it again and again and again. There have been 19 emails about it. I don't know how many, a lot. So really the question is for you guys. I've put out there what it is. Renee has said, I think it's a good idea too. And all I've heard from Bob, Frank, and Lily is no. So it's really for you guys to say, and then I'll put, you guys speak your mind, I'll put it to a vote and we'll move on with our lives.
No,
I would clarify that because nobody said no. The concern that I expressed clearly in the email was that because we have an activation plan that's in process, It was a 3-year process to craft the active transportation plan. Traffic calming was the primary focus of the village part of that plan, which is right here. And if you go through the documents that are in there, it's woven throughout the whole documents. What we don't want to do is create confusion, which is what I said in my email, because if we just start anew, we're sort of throwing the old process under the bus. So for one thing, if we're going to have an informational meeting on speeding, and I think we're all in agreement that this is one of the most important issues that residents are dealing with right now, are the safety issues. There's no disagreement about that. But if we're going to set an agenda for the meeting, let me finish, please. We at a minimum would need to include a summary of the progress and the steps that we have already done as part of the active transportation plan to inform residents what is already underway. And I think that would include, updates as far as DOT, what they're doing with the pedestrian safety plan, the discussions we've had with the Sheriff's Department, and the potential of investigating the implementation of a speed camera system, which I think in the long run is going to be one of the most effective tools that we have to actually bring speeds down.
Okay, you said, Bob, nobody said no. Frank said no. You said no. Lily said
No, no. A point of clarification,
Frank,
Trustee Keating.
Frank, you are to let me finish. You are to let me finish.
Go
I
ahead.
have the email right here from Frank, sent September 6th, 2 days ago. Dan, I listened to your comments and those of others at the last board meeting regarding the idea of, quote, village-wide forum on speeding and safety, and have reviewed the comments and emails, some listed below, made by other board members. That's referring to Renee's input, Bob's input, and Lily's input regarding this issue. After much consideration, I believe we should focus our attention on the public hearing for the ATP, Frank, which means no. Okay, so the second thing is, Bob, all those things that you said we should do and put into a meeting is what I have proposed. So that's really not very hard to give an update to people, and I don't really want to argue about this. I've proposed several times what this would be. I'll go over it again. Information on what we've done, on what we can do, on what we have no control over, open action items that are not done yet, such as the ATP and how that affects everything, how we hear from our residents, ideas from the residents, what's worked, what hasn't. It is a means for us to communicate to them, since we have no formal channel to communicate to them. We have no newsletter. We've sent out nothing about this. This is a crisis that my phone keeps ringing from people on Jefferson, from people on Main, from people on State, from people on Monroe. So it's a simple thing. If you want to do a session on this, we do it. If you don't, we don't. So I will make a motion that we hold the informational session. I'm allowed to make a motion.
I think we need, yes, to make your motion, but we're not ready to take the vote because we have
in the middle of making the motion, and I will not.
Do not interrupt me when I speak.
I will not be interrupted by you. I'm in the middle of making a motion, and then that motion gets seconded, and then there is discussion on it. That's how it works. So I'm going to make a motion that we fulfill on the plan that I put forward, and I really hope you guys join us on, let's see, I think September 15 was the date. I'm a little flexible on that if we need to be from a notification standpoint. So the proposal was the 15th. I don't know when the soonest we could do it. I did propose it originally on, I believe it was Monday, August 24th. So we've had a couple weeks to think about it and chew it over. So my proposal is to have an informational session just on speeding on Tuesday, September 15th. Do I have a second? Renee, you are muted.
There you go.
I know I'm having a hard time with my mute button. you said that you were flexible on the date. And as you know, I support this session. I think the priority should be given to getting through the LWRP comments. So I don't, that date is too soon because we're doing the LWRP comments as well. So you said the 24th was another option.
Sure, 24th. So I'll amend my motion for the 24th.
Then I will second it. Stetzer second.
I'm not available on the 24th, so I would ask for another date.
Yeah, could you clarify the date? I'm really confused. Are we talking about September 24th? Yeah, is that what you're saying?
Bob's not available on the 24th. So how about the 23rd? It's a Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
I'm not available. I'm going to be out of town between the 23rd and October 4th.
How about the 22nd? Tuesday
That
night.
could potentially work. I do have a comment though. I want to read the email I sent because you said that I said no. I'm speaking, Dan. Thanks. Our village. This is the email that I sent to Dan. I want to read this for the record. Our village staff worked hard to obtain the grant for the active transportation plan. Village and town residents volunteered hundreds of hours to craft a thorough plan that was informed by professional expertise and vetted with other community stakeholders. The foundation for the recommendations in the active transportation plan was the extensive public outreach that occurred as part of the process. The completed plan gives the village a useful negotiating tool when working with the New York State Department of Transportation. After so much effort has gone into our efforts, into our official traffic calming plan, it simply does not make sense to start another parallel effort. Let's instead use our time wisely to finish the project we have already put so much effort into. The public hearing for the active transportation plan will provide exactly the same forum you are proposing, with the additional benefit of informing our residents about the work that has already been done. That was my statement. The other statement I'd like to make, excuse me, I'm still speaking.
Clear, that's a no.
Excuse me, Dan, I'm still speaking. You've asked for the courtesy not to be interrupted yourself, but please give other people that courtesy also. Yes. Okay, thank you. The other problem with the email exchange that we had is that under the open meetings law, when the board takes an action, that work has to happen within the boundaries of a public meeting. So if we're going to plan a forum on speeding, the work for us to actually discuss that, decide on an agenda, doesn't happen in an email change. It actually happens in the boundaries of a meeting. And the clerk, as I've said before, and I want to reiterate this because we are having some problems along this line. Under New York State Village law, the clerk is the official communicator for the board for official actions of the board. So if there's an agenda, it goes through the clerk's office and she distributes it. If we're going to have a speeding session, and you know, the reason I put it on the agenda tonight is so we could have a constructive dialogue to figure out how to do this in a way that makes sense. Dan, it's not an issue of yes or no. It's an issue of doing this wisely. So if we do decide to have an additional forum on speeding that I'm not inherently opposed to, we do it in a way that doesn't conflict with what we've already undertaken with the active transportation plan. And it isn't a matter that we're just going to go ahead and do it and we're all against you. That's not what anybody is trying to say here. What we're trying to do is have a constructive way to how do we position this so it is complementary to the work that has already been done with the active transportation plan. And I think that's the point that Renee is having. And all we need to have tonight is a constructive dialogue. How do we do these so that it's not confusing, because we're also going to have a public hearing on the active transportation plan. I have no problem doing a speeding forum sooner, but I think we have to think about what the agenda is and how that fits within the larger picture of the active transportation plan. Because any actions, creative ideas, brainstorming that comes out of this, in all likelihood, we're going to want to fold that back into the active transportation plan. So this is not as a criticism, Dan. All I'm saying is that we need to use the meeting tonight to brainstorm and make sure we get this right. So we use our time wisely.
Okay, sounds good.
May
you
I
said,
say something? This is Trustee Galusha. This is Trustee Galusha. Excuse
he
me.
just addressed me directly. I'm going to respond to that. He just
No.
addressed me directly by name. I'm going to respond to that. So have we ever scheduled a meeting by email? Of course we have. You said the planning of this meeting did not happen in the boundaries of a public meeting. It absolutely did. You just didn't attend that public meeting, Bob. Frank couldn't make it either. So I'm not going to accept an accusation that I did not do this properly. I brought it up in a planned meeting. It was recorded. It is a public meeting. It's recorded. You can go listen to it. So I'm not going to hear a criticism that I did not plan this in the boundaries of a public meeting. You said also, I have no problem doing a speeding meeting sooner than the ATP meeting, when you just read an email that said, I don't want to do this until after we have an ATP meeting. So, and to correct the record, I put it on the agenda, not Bob, but I'm glad you did too. So look, it's out there. Let's have a vote, yes or no. Frank, go right ahead. I just needed to correct the mistruths that Bob just spoke.
And I need to correct your statement, Trustee Keating. This is Trustee Galusha. My response to your idea was not a no. I listened to your comments, or I should say, I read your comments in the emails. I went back to the board meeting and listened to the meeting and listened to your comments as you suggested. And as I wrote, I'm not going to go through and read my comments again. I gave your comments, I gave the comments of all the trustees my consideration. And it was my view that the ATP meeting for the active transportation plan was going to suffice. That was my position. I thought your idea was a good idea, but we were going to cover it with the ATP hearing. So please do not accuse me of something that I did not say or do.
Well, you didn't voice
I guess what I would say,
this. Hey, he just addressed me. I'm going to respond to it. Frank, you didn't show any support of it until this moment. Okay. Secondly, we just have a differing opinion on this, guys, and that's fine. I think this is an emergency. I hear from our residents several times a week on this. I think it's an emergency. The second thing we disagree on is that, and so it requires immediate action. The second thing that we disagree on is waiting till the end of the active transportation plan. That has been going on for years, and it's looking like it's going to take even longer. So to wait for that feels completely arbitrary and completely unresponsive to what we're hearing from our residents. The third thing that we disagree on is I don't think our residents care what an active transportation plan is. I think there are people that do, and many of them are on this call. But to the people who live on Jefferson Road and Main Street, they don't care what an active transportation plan is. They just want some action on speeding. So that's where we differ. Well, love to just get to a vote. We don't really need to argue about this. It's been proposed on the 24th. If you'd like to do it on the 24th, that would be great.
I think the conversation ends when everybody's done. Dan, you don't set the agenda. This isn't a tit for tat thing. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, yes. Dan. It's about trying to work together as a group to craft a format and agenda that we all agree on that will be productive and will hopefully accomplish something. So I would make a motion that since we've scheduled a meeting to deal with the planning board's ATP comments, that we use that workshop session to also craft an agenda and a format for this speed meeting that we all agree on. The problem is, you've set an agenda, but we haven't gotten together as a group to be able to talk to the merits.
It's not that hard,
and
Bob.
I think we do. It's not, you want to argue about this. None of us are trying to argue. Again, Dan, let me finish, please.
Yeah.
None of us are trying to argue about this. We all want the same thing here. Oh, well, that's your perception, Dan. I can't do anything about that.
The truth.
I'm suggesting that we get together as a board.
Okay, let's move on.
Dan,
I'm so done with this topic. Bob, there's
Dan,
already
you're
a motion on the
interrupting me.
floor.
You're
There's
interrupting
already
me.
a motion on the floor. You can't make another motion while there's a motion on the
Dan,
floor.
Okay, point of order here. Dan, please do not interrupt me when I'm speaking. You asked for the same courtesy. If you act like a child, I'm going to have to treat you like a child. This should be something that we work together as a board. It's not, you know, you're trying to turn it into a polarizing issue, and we're a small village. This is about dealing with it together as a team effectively. So I would make a motion that
there's a motion on the floor.
We fold into a.
The motion on the floor has been seconded.
Dan, you're interrupting me. Just hold off, okay? Just hold off.
There's a motion on the floor. It needs to be voted on.
Lily, you had I recognize
I do.
Lily.
Thank you. I would just like a clarification of where we stand at the moment. Where we stand at the moment is that we have voted to meet with as a board to discuss the LWRP findings of the Planning and Zoning Board.
Yep.
We have not yet decided on a date for the active transportation plan public hearing combination with the town. Is that correct? We have not yet.
Correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
We don't have that yet, but we're anticipating it hopefully in the month of October. That's what Bill Smith was asking us to discuss and hoping that we would be there with them on that issue. The present motion on the floor states that we would have a public forum on the subject of speeding on Tuesday, September the 22nd.
I think
I just wanna make
the
sure that we have
24th, Thursday, the 24th, I believe, right?
22nd.
That's what.
24th.
Oh, it is the 22nd? Okay, thanks for clarifying,
sorry.
guys.
We
I
can't
wanted to
do
make
the
sure.
22nd. We can't do the 22nd because that's a village board meeting night
Right.
unless you're going to scrap the village board meeting night. So I'm going to say no on the 22nd, just from the calendar standpoint.
So that doesn't work. So no 22nd.
First hour.
So that motion then needs an amendment because that date does not work. Is that
Unless the
correct?
board agrees to meet earlier or later than their meeting, it's going to be up to you. I'm just saying, you have a village
I
board.
think if we want the public to participate, I think it needs to be an evening meeting for the speeding forum.
Right.
I think Dorothy, oh, sorry. Dorothy was
There's
just
no
saying,
reason not to do it the same night as a trustees meeting. The
Right.
22nd is fine.
Okay, so now are you going to amend your motion now to say
No.
that? Oh, okay, so
No,
could you
because that
clarify
was
your motion?
for the 22nd.
So the speeding forum, the motion on the floor is to hold a speeding forum on speeding on September the 22nd at what time? I want to be clear what I'm voting on, please.
Do you want to just do it as part of the trustees meeting and do it at the beginning of the trustees meeting? So
If that is
6:30?
if that's what you would like to do, if that is your motion.
Sure, 6:30.
Okay, 6:30 on September the 22nd. With that,
Would the board like to hear comments from the public on this matter?
yes, and has that been seconded? Renee, is that what you seconded? I want to make
Yes.
certain that that is what you are.
Okay.
I will
Go ahead,
second it
go
just
ahead and-
again.
Okay.
So,
To be clear, we have never had a vote. We never had a vote. We had a discussion at the previous meeting regarding a forum. So there was no vote taken. So it was a discussed in concept only. I just wanted to make that point. So, no what?
Okay,
No, no.
Dorothea, would you read the comments from the public, please?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we had a couple comments that the board did end up answering, and I think those people are okay. I just want to read. Art Pierce said, is the intent of the village trustees speeding information meeting to set a firm constructive next steps for the village, e.g. meeting with New York State DOT, county state representatives with presentation of all recommendations submitted by residents and village representatives to date supplementing the speed data.
Yes, and more.
Since Dave Ferris commented, since there is going to be a joint meeting with the town now, why would there be a meeting on a piece of the active transportation plan without putting it in the full context? I have reviewed the ATP and speed is mentioned throughout. Why have citizens attend multiple meetings without full information? Our peers
Dave,
said, thank you.
Dave, to answer your question, I've thought a lot about that. It's an interesting question because so much of the ATP, of course, is going to relate to speeding. The reason to pull it out and to make it separate is to tell our residents how much we hear them, that their concerns right now are emergencies for us. When it gets wound in with things that people may not perceive to be part of speeding, it loses its impact. So that's the answer there.
Continuing on, Mr. Pierce did thank Bob for the clarification. He must have felt that, and I'm sorry that came in afterwards. Justin Lightgib commented, creating safer streets for all residents, especially pedestrians and bicyclists, is a complex issue. I appreciate the board's calm, deliberate, and collaborative efforts to come up with sustainable solutions to this problem.
I completely disagree that it has been collaborative. From moment one, I have had pushback from Frank, Bob, and Lily, period. They've shown a little bit of support tonight, no support elsewhere. They're putting on a nice little show for everybody on the phone, but it has been negative, no, no, no. That's the truth.
Okay, I'd like to make another comment. I think we should discuss the format and the agenda at the workshop meeting we have scheduled next week with the ATP. I think as a board, we need to work on this together so we can agree on what information will be presented as part of the speed forum and what the overall format will be for that meeting.
Sure, I've already sent that over. You're welcome to comment on it, and we're welcome to talk about it at whatever meeting you'd like, should you agree to it.
Dan, you sent it over, but we haven't, as a board, we haven't taken the time to discuss it or review it.
Are you having trouble listening? I just said the words, when we're welcome to discuss it at any point. We could discuss it now if you'd like.
I think
once again, you interrupted me. Would you please let me finish without interrupting me? That's about the 10th time in this meeting that you've interrupted different board members. So
sorry,
please,
I don't react to BS very well, Bob. I just don't react to BS very well.
Okay, so I would I would add an agenda item to our workshop session for next week that we also put the speed forum on that agenda so that we can discuss the format and agenda items together as a board.
Can I make one additional comment, please? Trustee Galusha, I really object to Trustee Keating portraying those board members who do not go along with Trustee Keating's idea as voting no and not in support of any action against traffic. I would also say that approximately 20 years ago, there were two village residents that came to the village board and made a presentation about speeding with a diagram of streets and traffic. Those two people were Sam Bick, who no longer lives in the village, and myself. Traffic has been a problem. Traffic is a problem on our street, and speed is a problem on our street. So, Dan, do not portray those board members who don't go along lockstep with you as not in consideration of our residents and the problem that we have with speeding and careless drivers. We are all highly concerned about that. Our view was to the approach to the problem and not to the idea. So please don't paint us out as something we are not.
I completely disagree with you, Frank, and I respect that you have that opinion. I've seen nothing but no's from you three on this topic until tonight. You had plenty of chances to say, hey, that's a good idea, let's explore it, and you didn't. Okay?
I said that.
No, you didn't. All I got from you three was no, 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 in all kinds of different ways. All right, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. I hear that no as no. You hear that no as no, Dan, you didn't do this right. So the vote's on the table. Frank, we're just gonna agree to disagree.
Trustee Galusha, again, there was never the word no spoken by me or the other board members. There was an alternate plan to what you were suggesting. There was a recognition to the problem that you brought up. In fact, I even agreed, and I'm going to go along, or I'm going to suggest the same thing you suggested at the last meeting. Go to the minutes and listen to my comments, but don't portray us out. I strongly object to your portraying those board members who don't agree with you lockstep as not being concerned about traffic for our residents.
And I disagree, Frank, so.
Okay,
that's
okay,
what
Dan, that's
there we go.
enough, that's enough.
Well,
Okay,
Frank, it's enough from you. I disagree with you. And I've got
Can
all
we,
the.
is it
We have
possible to take a
motion on the
pause?
floor.
I'm
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I'm just going to take a pause. We can't run meetings like this. We have a
We
motion
don't
on
need
the
to have an
floor.
argument in the meeting. I think we need to move on to the topic. There is a motion on the floor. I would ask Dorothea to take a vote, please.
Real quick, you have Dave Ferris raising his hand
Yeah.
and would like to speak.
Mhm.
Are you still entertaining the public?
I'll recognize Dave.
I don't want to hear a lecture, Dave.
Dave,
You're muted.
please let people speak and be courteous, Dan. Dave, you have the
we can't
floor.
hear you.
Microphone is not on, Bob.
Mr. Ferris, we can't hear you.
Dave,
Nobody can
we can't hear you. Your microphone is not on.
Okay, look, guys, if just once one of you had said, hey, this is a good idea, let's go with it, we might be in a different place. I'm sorry that it makes you uncomfortable that I'm putting back on you guys all of your resistance. Okay, let's vote.
Let's see if David, I think he's getting his microphone hooked up. Dave, can we hear you?
No.
Yep, now we can.
Okay, I just had put some headphones on here. I've listened to discussion and speeding is certainly a concern. I guess ironically, when you think active transportation, speeding is the most active that occurs. This is not something that's brand new topic, obviously, and I'm.
We lost
You're
you.
fading out, Dave. We lost you.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, I think we've spent enough time on this. On Dave's technical problems. Dave, maybe you could put it in a chat window, or you could write an email or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor that has been seconded. So I would ask Dorothea for a roll call vote.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee
Did you hear me?
Yes,
Keating,
I did.
aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye. All right,
Motion passes.
let's move on.
That could have been easier.
Can you hear me at this point or not?
Oh, there you
We
are.
can hear you, Dave. Go ahead. We can now
Okay.
hear you well.
Yeah, okay. I think if you're going to have this meeting, that you want turnout and people aren't going to attend multiple meetings. And the speed issue by itself, I'm not sure what answers people are get. You know, you have the sheriff come or whoever you have come. I think it's more powerful to have that occur at a meeting with the town supervisor and board in concert and making impact. And speeding isn't just saying, well, it's a serious problem. We listened to your neighbors. Okay, we're trying to solve it. We all know it's not simple to solve. It's not just, any one thing. It could be traffic calming, many different things. And I think for the residents who have these issues, including myself, it takes an understanding on a broad base that's not just about, we're not going to have the Monroe County Sheriff come out here every day and ticket people. If we think so, we're naive to think we're going to get that police service unless we want to have our own police department and pay the taxes. So I just would really hope that there'd be one broad meeting in the context of the active transportation plan so that neighbors understand the complexity and the reality, and town people who might attend that meeting realize as they drive through our village, the impact they have on us, though they don't live in the village. So those are just my thoughts. So if there's a separate meeting, it has to be very well thought out. I don't know how you'll do it without the ATP being a big part of it to understand the issues. Whether it be sidewalks, calming, speed limits throughout the village. ATP plan deals with these broad issues. It's not going to happen by somebody picking a few drivers driving through our village. I wish it were, but it's not that simple. So those are my thoughts. And I don't think I've heard DNAB say they're not supportive of addressing the speeding issues. The question is how to do it, and do you blend it in with the ATP?
Dave, if you want, I'll send you all the emails. You can read through and you can tell me whether you see support from Bob, Frank, and Lily. And
I'm not questioning support, Dan. I'm talking the issue. I'm talking as a resident,
Dave,
how to address it,
just said
and how to
didn't
communicate
hear, I'm
it.
telling you it exists.
Okay. And
Dave, what I'm trying to accomplish here is to communicate with our residents. There is zero communication from the village trustees to the residents. Zero.
I thought the town meeting.
Hold on. We have no newsletter. We've done one newsletter in 2.5 years. Okay. We have our Facebook page talks about the schedule of meetings, and that's it. People don't know what we're doing, and this is a crisis. So I want to communicate to people. That's it. It's that simple. It's a really easy thing to say yes to.
It would be simple to communicate, come to this meeting, join in the meeting with the town on the ATP, and invite those outside people to the same meeting. Will have more impact with a larger audience than it will with a few neighbors who won't attend the subsequent meeting. Yeah.
And I disagree, and we already voted. So thanks for your opinion.
I understand. Yeah.
And we're going to discuss this next week at our workshop on next Wednesday. So we'll have more discussion on the topic. All right, moving on. Let's do the treasurer's report.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mary, okay.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right.
The vouchers have been reviewed.
They have been. Have they been approved?
No,
No.
we haven't gotten.
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. I just want to call out a few of them. Number 137 for the front door. 153 for the next.
Mary? I'm sorry, was that on budget? That it was like 9,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Which number?
Well, just the front door.
Yes,
it was
it's
in the
on
budget. Yes, it was. Yes.
No, did it come in the budgeted amount is the question.
Yes, is
Okay.
the answer.
Less than the budgeted amount.
Correct. 153 for the truck installment, for the Ford truck installment. 155 for the AUD filing. 157 for state unemployment insurance for Michael James. And then on the sewer fund, number 138 for James Barnish for an overpayment of their sewer account. This account is, this person is going through a divorce and is possibly leaving the village, so they wanted to clear up their account. So I just need an approval on that. So
moved.
That said, all right. Have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second?
And a vote?
Do we have a second?
Yes, we have trustee Keating seconded that. So roll call, trustee Keating,
Aye. Keating, aye.
trustee Lampier. Lily, you're muted.
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's our aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Mary.
Welcome. Moving on, I have the July books on for you for review. Everything is coming in as expected at this point. I have no concerns on any of the accounts. Some of our expenditures, there are negative amounts. Those will be cleared up with the August posting. That's part of our accounts payable. I also want to draw attention to account number 1990.4, which is a contingency account, which has $26,231 in it. That will come up for discussion later on tonight. The difference between revenues and expenses on general fund at this time is $690, $679.51. Moving on to the analysis of fund equity. At this time, at 7/31/2020, our fund balance is at 872,022.55 with a projection for 5/31 of 186.1119. Sewer fund, no issues, nothing to report off of that. That unreserved fund balance at 7/31 is 696,098.58 and projected at 5/31/07/04.839. Both of these numbers are a little bit too high, but that's another discussion to be had, hopefully in the next couple of meetings.
Okay.
Capital Improvement Fund has a fund balance of $63,459.83. These monies will be used to be paying off the bond for this coming year. And the last page is just our payroll account, and that's just money going in and out. That's it for my report.
Thank you, Mary.
Other than, one
Drainage
other thing.
issues.
Yep, I forgot about the drainage issues. Friday, Bob, Frank, myself, and Zach had a meeting. We were talking about the drainage issues that we have around the village. Those are listed in order of importance and the monies that we might need to get those projects completed. Right now, Zach is looking at getting quotes from several people to find out how much these drainage issues are going to actually cost us so we can budget properly. But from there, I'll give it to Frank, who wanted to talk about these a little bit more.
I don't see that in the packet. Where is that, Mary? Where is the list of priorities?
It's in the treasurer's report.
It's on the
first
treasurer's,
page.
right, treasurer's report, last item. Drainage issues awaiting quotes. Do you see it?
I don't.
Do you have the most recent packet that you're looking at? Because the initial one I sent out was vouchers only.
Okay. All right, go ahead. It's fine.
Well, I had hoped that possibly Zach would be here to help us out with these issues. But the first number, $20,000 for Village Hall, I'm sure everybody can see what they are doing out front there. We had some bids that went from $60,000 to $20,000. And we decided on the $20,000 bid. The work is progressing along quite well. They had a few problems with the soil that was not conducive to the work they were doing, and the curbs started to cave in. And if you go by there now, you will see there is a lot of curbing on the side of the road, but that work is progressing quite well. 28 Monroe Avenue, Bob, I think you covered that issue well. Locust Street, we've had some problems there, but the additional $10,000 is going to help us correct the problems. Rand Creek, Bob, perhaps you can help me out with that one. As the trustees remember, we received complaints from Mr. Palumbo, a homeowner that brought to light the issue of the creek and the caving walls. And we have looked at that with our engineer, and we project that depending on how bad the issue is, repairing it could go from 20 to 50,000. Bob, you want to add anything with that? Plus the additional.
Yeah, let me just add a couple points to what you just went over. On Locust Street, we on the hill, the east part of the street, we replaced the main a year ago, the storm sewer main. There is also a lateral that is galvanized pipe and that's the one that Zach got a quote for. On Rand Place, when we met on site with the resident, whose name I forget at the moment, we
Mr.
agreed
Palumbo.
that we would, Mr. Palumbo, thank you. We agreed that we would take out a tree on his side of the creek that's causing erosion on the other side. That's in process. Zach is going to get, the top of the tree has come down already. The root ball, Craig Prince is going to give us a quote to remove that. We don't have that number yet. There is some stone loss going in the gabions. According to Scott Harder, who went out there, he thinks if we do some remedial work on the other side of the creek, the gabions will survive until next year when we can budget for a solution to address the erosion. We did confirm that there are utilities over there that we need to be concerned about, but at this point, it looks like we can put that work off to the next fiscal year. Anything
yes,
else, Frank?
Bob. Well, I was going to say, would you like to cover the other three items, the last three items? North Main Street.
What are they, Frank? I don't have them.
North Main Street,
we
we
talked
have an
about.
addition.
North
We've
Main
already-
additional is from the Village Hall to, going south towards, towards South Main Street.
And Washington Road, Mary?
That was 45,000, not $45. I don't have the particulars on that. And then the
Yeah,
last one was Stone Place for 16,000.
Yeah. These are long range drainage things we need to do. They're not as urgent as the other ones that we mentioned.
Any
So
questions?
the three priorities that are going to have to happen this fiscal year, as I understand it, is the Village Hall, which is happening right now, 28 Monroe, which I believe you spoke about earlier. And is that figure for 8,500 versus the 20,000, or will there possibly be up to 20,000 on the ground?
Today, Zach got a quote from Craig Prince for $8,500.
Okay, so
it's much less than the work on Main Street because it's in a lawn, so there's no curbing or pavement that needs to be restored.
All right, and then the last one for this fiscal year will be Locust Street for approximately 10,000.
That is correct.
So the first three are definite that have to be done. They are emergency situations. Rand Creek is kind of a standby. If it happens, it probably can be budgeted next year. And then the three others will depend
on Rand Creek, we will have to budget some money for Scott Harder to design a solution for that. So there will be some engineering costs associated with that repair.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
That's it for me.
All right, let's move on. Dorothea, do you have anything in the clerk's report?
I have one minor thing that popped up. I mentioned it to Bob. I received an email from New York State Association of City and Village Clerks. There's a very possibility that all clerks will be utilized with the upcoming election to have provide a lockbox for a collection point for absentee ballots. I will keep the board appraised on this matter. It appears this is something, though, we won't be reimbursed for, so I'm not sure how we construct or if we can just use our mailbox, what's the actual requirements involved. So this could be something coming down. It's in a bill right now in Albany. In addition, we do have a couple comments from Art Pierce. He requested that I get information from the board. If Bob, you're okay with me reading them?
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
He's asking, able to address the following before closing the meeting. Could you confirm if the existing sidewalk on South side of State Street being extended 50 or 150 linear feet beyond Durham Way per New York State DOT? If 50 linear feet, is it shy of a couple of the residential properties?
And I think the answer to that is the most recent information we have is it's about 50 feet beyond Durham Way, which there would still be two houses in the town that wouldn't have a sidewalk. The
Correct.
reason the site where they did extend it to is because in terms of grade, it's easier to get a crosswalk there on both sides of the street. If you go further to the east, there's quite an embankment on both the north and the south sides of the road. That's why they ended up there.
Okay, and he followed that up. For the record, this resident appreciates all of the efforts and work to date taken by the village trustees, recognizing that it is a work in progress.
Thank you, Art.
And that's all I have.
Okay, Jeff Turner, do you have anything you want to report?
No, it's been a pretty quiet August on the legal front.
All right, the only thing I wanted to report on my member item was the CCA bids came in high. I've talked to the town. This isn't what they're higher. They cannot guarantee a rate lower than the rate that they currently get through RG&E. So the agreement is the town is not going forward unless we hear something differently. There's no action required from us. They may, as new rate projections come out, there may be a new proposal from Jewel, but we don't have anything yet. Okay. All right. I'll ask Trustee Stetzer. You had a couple member items.
I did. The first one we already talked about earlier. We scheduled a working meeting to discuss the planning board's LWRP ATP input. Next time I'll try to add a few more acronyms into my agenda items, but we already discussed that one. The other one is the right turns. I've had a couple residents and Mayor Corby, you've also mentioned this, but we're seeing more and more people turning right on red at our four corners. And I know that Captain DeLizer said that's a tough spot for his deputies to even be because they can't park and then follow up when they see behaviors like that. So I don't know. I wanted to bring it up so that we keep an eye on this. I know we've got some things in the active transportation plan to address that, and we're going to be having some resurfacing of both of those roads coming up. So we need to keep it on the radar. Anything we can do with those, getting rid of those right turn lanes, or if we're putting whatever we decide we're doing. In the meantime, maybe we need to put some additional signs up to remind people. I don't want to assume that they're all nefarious ne'er-do-wells trying to just speed through our village. They may not know. So anyway, that's it.
Renee, I was going to suggest, because at our last meeting with DOT, if you remember, they suggested having a leading time
indicator
for the pedestrian light. I
think
we need to follow up on that. And
Okay.
I've noticed the last couple of weeks, people have been really aggressive making the right turns. And even when I've been in the crosswalk, you still have to jump out of the way because they don't stop. They just keep going ahead. So it really is a dangerous concern. And I think we should revisit that. We will be scheduling a meeting with DOT in the near future. And I think that should be on the topic of discussion that we want to just discuss. Okay, next we can, anything else, Renee, before I move ahead?
That's it, thank you.
Dan, you had a couple of items you wanted to add?
A couple of them we've already addressed, so it's really just two of the standing member items. One is at the May 26th meeting, the May 26th trustees meeting, Bob said he would write up an update on what's going on 75 Monroe for Facebook. And so I ask about that every meeting, just so we could have some kind of information coming from the village to the trustees. We've had a bunch of meetings since then. Nothing has happened. So I'm asking again, Bob, what are the plans to write an update for our public on what's going on 75 Monroe? It's now been about 3.5 to 4 months since you said you would do it.
And in talking to our attorneys, they advise that if we're going to do this, we might as well do it after, because there is some pending decision that's going to happen with the court over the next month. Once there's actually some new activity occurs, that seems like that would be a timely plan. I also did request from Susan Loda to have the summary of 75 Monroe that I still haven't received. I'll follow up on that tomorrow and see if I can get that. So at least we can get a draft out that we can update once we get some decisions, which we know are pending in the court of John Ark. Okay. Anything else, Dan?
Yeah, the second one is the same thing I read every time. Let me just find it. One moment. Here it is. I'm still in favor of negotiating with Mark IV. The last we spoke of this was in the winter, and the idea was to have Bob, me, Susan Loda, and Bill McBride sit down with Mark IV. The idea stalled. I would still like to make this happen. Otherwise, we're waiting for the legal system to solve this problem, which we've seen no sign of and is incredibly expensive. Again, as you recall, the negotiations would be non-binding, as the subboards are the ones with current approval over current lawsuits.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Thanks for keeping that on the agenda, Dan.
Okay. And the other thing, we did give a report on the stop signs at Sutherland and South Street earlier in the meeting, and Zach expects to have them up shortly. So I guess you overheard that part. Okay, anyone else with member items? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
That's our second. Dan.
All in favor? Roll call vote, sorry.
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye. Apparently I need a faster internet connection to get the secondeds in there.
there you go. Mayor Corby,
Corby, aye. Thank you, everybody.
motion
Have a
passes.
good evening.
Meeting closes.
Take care. Bye.
Night.